Welcome back to The Performance Prescription, where we help healthcare marketers get smarter, stay grounded, and feel seen. This podcast is a service to the healthcare marketing community from Target Continuum. Their market-leading unified patient acquisition method helps healthcare organizations acquire net new patients with strategies grounded in their reality. Learn more at targetcontinuum.com. Our host today is Matt Rapucci, Regional Sales Director at Target Continuum, and our guest is Rachel Bowman, Multimedia Production Coordinator at Bayhealth. What I enjoyed the most from today's conversation was how Rachel connected her work with Bayhealth's podcast, social media, and ambassador program and identified several ways to show value, from recruiting to brand storytelling. And now, over to Matt and Rachel.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We can jump right in. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to Bayhealth. It seems there's a theme of everyone we're talking to on the show that no one has a straight line to healthcare. But your line, I think your story is pretty cool. So I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Bayhealth about 4 years now, and I'm the podcast producer, like you mentioned. I also do social, and we have an ambassador program that I run as well. And my story in marketing really honestly started back in high school. I went to a technical high school where I'm from, took business there. In my first marketing class, I just fell in love with designing billboards and ads and things like that as a teenager. And then from there, I went to school for marketing, did it in college for student activities board, and then in the insurance industry, and then church planting, and now in healthcare. And how I got into healthcare is my current boss had attended my church, and she noticed my stuff from the church that I was doing their social for. And that's how we got connected. So now I'm in healthcare, and I'm loving it because I'm still helping people. So it's been a great journey so far.
I think you're one of the first people I've heard of that has gotten recruited into healthcare from the church space. So I think that's great. So
Yeah.
that's a great story. And
Yeah.
kudos to your boss for having the vision and seeing your skill set. That's really great.
Yeah, she's great.
So tell us a little bit about Bayhealth, about the system, and about some of the bigger things that you have going on.
Yeah, sure. So Bayhealth Delaware has 3 counties. We're a small state, and we are in 2 of those, and we're a little bit in one of them. And so we've got 2 hospitals, several emergency rooms and walk-ins, and I believe we have well over 300 beds between those 2 hospitals. So yeah, we've been growing. Sussex County, there's Kent County, which one hospital is in Sussex, which is another hospital. And Sussex especially is just, the population is booming. So we are adding on to buildings. We are adding buildings. So we're just growing leaps and bounds.
So want to get into some of the programs that your team is doing, that you've been working on. So obviously the podcast, want to talk about that, but you already mentioned the ambassador program, and you're doing some other community outreach as well. So tell us about your team and the programs you're working on.
Yeah. So our team also does, like you mentioned, community outreach. So we just really have a heart and a passion. We're a community hospital. So we have a passion to make sure that we are out in the community. So we have a mobile health unit, and we go all throughout the state doing flu shots and breast screenings. And lately we have been also partnering with the food bank here in Delaware and handing out food once a month. And people look forward to it. We look forward to it because we get to be the hands and feet in our neighborhood, and we get to meet people and humanize ourselves so they're not scared to walk into our doors. So it's been a joy to be able to connect with the community in that way and take what we do outside of our hospital walls, because not everyone's comfortable with walking into a hospital. So
yeah, I think that's a good point that I don't think about often, that people aren't always comfortable just walking into, forget any procedure, any service line. It just, the hospital experience in general can be daunting. So you humanizing and making the connection can literally lower the bridge to entry, or the gap to entry.
Right. Just building that trust with the community is important to us.
Yeah, fantastic. And then Tell us a little about your ambassador program. We've actually had a previous guest who had an ambassador program in her system down in DC. So what does your ambassador program entail?
It's a lot of fun. I started out with maybe 20 and then it's grown to like 50. Now it's like 75. And it's just people in our whole health system in every department. So we get to kind of have those eyes and ears as to what's going on in all of those departments. They send me photos if they're having like they have a great, for instance, we had someone that the Heart and Vascular Institute opened and they sent me a picture of what they're doing behind the scenes. Or even somebody has a birthday party in the back room, from that to that. So I get to kind of just see behind the scenes of what's going on in our hospital. They send me photos. They share things on social that are important to them. They tell stories of patients or even team members that have been impacted by what Bayhealth does. And so just having those little pulse points all over the hospital and all the different departments has been so integral in knowing what's going on in the whole health system. And it's also great, honestly, for me. I've been able to develop great relationships with people, and it's been fun to be able to meet all those people and learn more about them. So it's been a really fun part of my job.
Yeah. So making connections with other departments and other people that you might not come across in your normal work, correct? So how do you, and you might have already mentioned this, but how do you go about recruiting people for the ambassador program?
Yeah, good question. So it's a year-long program. And so what I do is I have meetings every quarter with them to update them on what's going on in the health system and ways that they can participate. And in like November time period, we send out through our internal messaging that we're accepting applications for the next year. People apply and then they come to a meeting to learn more about it. And it's been successful for lots of reasons, but I think also people like to see themselves on social media and they participate in reels. If they're an ambassador, they're in a lot of photos if they're an ambassador, which is great. It's fun. So they apply in November, and then if they're accepted, then in January to December, then they are part of the program.
I've talked to some other health systems recently who are interested in starting an ambassador program. So do you have any advice on getting started?
Yeah, I would say to start small and just get a few people that are connected already in the hospital and already know a lot of people and are good storytellers, are good with relationships, are comfortable being on camera. Get a few of those people and kind of just start to listen to their stories and start to tell their stories. And then from there, it's kind of just a domino effect, I feel like.
Yeah, building and scaling from there. That makes a lot of sense. Well, good. Of course, I want to dig into the podcast and what you're doing. And I don't want to steal your story, but if I'm remembering correctly from our conversation, the podcast wasn't your idea. So tell me how that came into play, because it's a pretty cool story.
Yeah. So someone from nursing, came to me and said, I have this great idea for a podcast. I feel like all of the nurses are just burnt out. It was this is 2022. So it was right after COVID, of course. And so her idea was, I just really want to remind the clinical staff of what their purpose is, what their why is, why they come here every day, so that they have motivation to come and they're not feeling burnt out and wanting to just quit. So the purpose of the podcast was, what's your why? And we hear stories from different healthcare workers about what their why is. So that's where we really started.
But so it started with the internal audience in mind, correct?
Correct.
But then it's expanded from there. Like you've told me about some of the big guests you've had. So tell me a little bit, how did it expand and how did you get some of the big names?
Yeah. So we expanded because we thought to ourselves, we don't want to just inspire healthcare workers. We want to inspire community as well. So we kind of have a twofold mission of inspiring the healthcare workers and inspiring our community and building trust and humanizing ourselves so that people, like we talked about before, people will feel comfortable coming to our hospital and trusting the people that are inside of it. So I think that the reason it developed is because we wanted to not just tell stories and humanize doctors, but we also wanted to hear what they're passionate about, what's new in whatever their platform is, and educate the community, because that's who healthcare workers are, right? They're passionate, they care, they have purpose in what they do, but part of that is sharing what they know. And so we thought we would just use that.
Awesome. So if I remember correctly, you actually had the governor of Delaware on one of your segments.
Yeah, it was the lieutenant governor. How did that come to? Oh, because the lieutenant governor actually was a nurse. At the time, it was Bethany Hall Long, and she was a nurse. And so we thought, what better person to have on a podcast to inspire nurses than a previous nurse? So we've had her. We've had people from the blood bank. We have had. This is our 6th season. So many great guests. So yeah, it's been fun.
Wow. So 6 seasons, that's amazing. And you won an award recently for the production of the podcast. So tell us just drop a little bit about the award and what that entailed.
Yeah, the award was a big surprise to me. I didn't know that my boss put us in for it. So that was a surprise. I don't really know why we won. All the other podcasts that I see are just as great as ours. So yeah, I'm not really sure, like I said, why why we won, but I think it's just because our podcast is telling stories and it is humanizing those doctors. Yeah, that's not the best answer, but
No,
I don't know why we won, honestly.
no, I think that's great, and I'll take a swing at why you won. I mean, you've mentioned as far as humanizing the stories, making sure that your internal team is being motivated and empowered, and then connecting with the community with and humanizing what you're doing to again build that trust and let people come in. So that's absolutely fantastic. And the idea of what's your why, making those connections. Yeah, you're doing it in a genuine way, and it's making an impact. So I
Yeah.
think that's why you won. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my favorite stories is one of our doctors told his why. And his why was he has a little piece of paper about this big on his desk that one of his patients that was about 8 years old drew a picture of him, and it said, "Dr. Fink, thank you for keeping us well. You're the reason we're alive." And so he keeps it like on his desk just to remind himself of his why every day. So I think that a lot of clinicians have stories like that. And so hearing those stories is so endearing and motivating to other healthcare workers. So I'm not clinical, and it still inspired me. So
Yeah, 100%. We probably don't share enough of those types of stories and enough of the wins. So that's fantastic that you and your team
yeah,
are doing that.
yeah, thanks.
So you've mentioned story a few different times, and you mentioned the idea of humanizing what you're doing at the team. So coming back to you as a marketer, and really, like you mentioned you started marketing in high school. I don't even know if I knew what marketing was in high school, but you started marketing in high school. But when we talked a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you're passionate about. I think you said you're passionate about telling stories that help people. So when you're looking at the ambassador program, the podcast, your community outreach, how are how does your love for storytelling play into all of these things?
I think it's really about relationship with people. I love people. I love to hear their stories. Um, I love to take those stories and take the beauty from them and let other people shine a light on that beauty and just let other people see it, because we need more of that in the world, right? And so shining a light on those beautiful moments or those inspiring moments really makes a difference in the world, whether it's, insurance or the church or healthcare. All of it matters. And so telling those stories has been important to me most of my life. I'm also a writer, so I do it in that way as well. So I feel like it's just important to highlight the good in people, and people like to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that builds a bridge, and that that builds trust. A story about the doctor getting that note and that picture from that 8-year-old, that, like you said, that inspired you, that inspired, like, that makes that makes me want to go and encourage a doctor.
Right. Right.
So that's a great reminder. And the more, like you said, the more we can showcase beauty in the world, the better we'll all be.
Yeah.
Jared, as always, I have a handful more questions, but would be happy to see if you had anything you wanted to ask Rachel about or highlight as well.
Yes, thanks. I'm just curious how you respond when people ask about the value of this, right? So clearly, spotlighting the good in the world it's heartwarming. It's we do need more of it in the world, and I absolutely align with that. Then there's always those who ask, okay, what's the value of that? Like, so how do you respond to that when somebody asks, like, how does your work with the podcast, so we can add in the ambassador program too, how does your work in general help Bayhealth's brand and like other marketing goals, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. So as a creative, I think a lot of times we doubt ourselves with how we make an impact. What's the ROI? You don't necessarily always see that. And so I think for me, knowing that my creativity solves a business problem makes me indispensable in a way, because it's telling those stories and it's connecting people to the product or whatever that might be. And so I think that showing my boss all of those things by not only numbers, but also people talking about the podcast and things that they heard on it. We actually had someone that was recently hired that said that he watched the podcast and it was the deciding factor on him coming to our health system because he felt connected and he felt like that was a place that he wanted to work. So it's a recruitment tool as well. And so that's always something that I talk about too, is that it's not just to educate the community, inspire healthcare workers, but also it's recruitment and retention, honestly.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And I would second all of those things in terms of the value that I've seen. And it's important to capture those anecdotes, those comments when people do say something that they heard on it and it led to something else. Absolutely.
Good. So a couple more questions on my end. So thinking about, your career journey and your arc, and it really sounds to me you've really landed in a place where you're making an impact. You're using your skills and talents to make a difference and doing something you're passionate about. So what advice would you have for a younger professional getting started, or someone who wants to get into healthcare marketing, or even a younger version of you? What so yeah, what kind of advice do you have?
Yeah. I think I would tell the younger version of me to collect experiences and not be so focused on a career journey, because I think that I had in my mind that I was going to be working at some big ad agency in New York City when I was in my 20s, and it didn't work out that way, but it doesn't mean that I'm not successful, because I define success for myself, of course. And for me, I think that every experience that I had in my marketing career, in every different industry, I learned something that I'm using today. And so not to feel disparaged if you're not where you want to be, because everything that you've learned is taking you to where you're going, and making meaning out of that is really important.
That collect experiences. So I think that's helpful for me, and I'm gonna steal that if that's okay.
Totally.
So I have to ask, backing away from healthcare for just a moment. I like to ask people kind of what their superpower is, and I would, yeah, I see the pictures on your wall behind you. So tell us about that aspect of your superpower.
Yeah. Um, I think my superpower is multitasking. I had 4 kids in 4 years, not on purpose. But I have twins that are 16, almost 15-year-old, and my daughter's 11 and a half. So my multitasking has to be on point. So that transfers at home to work, just being able to juggle all of their lives and needs and wants. It's been fun. It's been an adventure. So I think that's definitely my superpower.
Four kids in 4 years
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And whenever they were little, it must have been a wild party with.
I had an Amazon subscribe and save to diapers. I'll just tell you that.
I was just going to say, and lots of snacks.
Yeah.
For sure. When they were little.
Yeah.
And now more now that they're teenagers, probably even more. So
yeah. The oldest three are boys and they're all in sports. So just never ending eating.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing today. Thank you for all that you're doing for Bayhealth and the community. And looking forward to seeing how things continue to go and grow. And maybe we can have our podcast compete for the next award.
Sounds fun. Let's do it.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Appreciate you joining us today and giving us so much to think about and to learn from.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.